Welcome to another installment of This Is Not Normal on the Political Drain podcast with Drill Sergeant Doug, aka Admin Doug, a U.S. Army veteran, teacher, musician, and family man from Jamaica, now fights for justice and democracy through commentary and humor. Follow him on YouTube at Political Drain and at Sons of Liberty Official as Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug, continues to protect our freedoms.
Y'all remember during the campaign, Donald Trump took a special flight out to Dearborn, Michigan to lie to Arab-Americans' faces, to pander, to get their vote. He promised them that he was going to bring peace to the Middle East. He never told them how he was going to do it. And yet Black Americans continue to try to warn them, and they continue to try and silence our voices because they knew better. And since Donald Trump got into the White House, because remember, they said, if you vote for Kamala Harris, don't expect to be welcomed by my community. They told that to us, right? They told Black people, keep Palestinians' names out of our fucking mouths when you're talking about voting for Kamala Harris.
You remember that? I do. In the following video, you're going to see me stand against and oppose completely some of the racist and ridiculous acts that this administration, if you call it that, is doing. But to ensure that some people don't interpret this act of decency and solidarity with oppressed people everywhere in the wrong way, it'll be a long time and a lot of work on your part before I can listen to anything you have to say about this country. You are lucky that I consider it to be my duty to the democracy I live in and pledge to that you happen to be a beneficiary of that duty. That's it. Nothing more. You have work to do. And now that that's done, we can start the show. What's up, YouTube? Drill Sergeant here, and I wanted to make sure that that PSA reached the people who it intended to reach. If you're still here, I got news for you. It's ridiculous, and I don't know why it hasn't been covered more. Did you know that on June 4th, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to ban travel from a dozen countries, and he placed partial restrictions on travel from several more, proclaiming, "We don't want them. We don't want them." Those are his words. Well, Donald, no one wants you either. That's why you had to pay off a porn star and had to get a mail order bride from the Kit Kat Club. As a matter of fact, Orange Julius Caesar, when you left this G7 summit early, after fumbling and bumbling treaties, dropping them on the floor, and filleting the ghost of Russia, who's no longer invited for a reason, I'm sure every other leader at that summit could finally breathe a sigh of relief and start talking openly and not behind your back like they were before. No. Not about you. Well, okay, yeah. Probably about you. They're laughing at you for sure. But more importantly, because just like Ukraine, none of them trust you as far as they can spit. That's why Zelensky never told you about the upcoming bombing campaign, as you and the sensual smoky eye Vance embarrassed yourselves. Embarrassed yourselves in front of him in the Oval Office. And number two, you are a mentally deficient, annoying child that needs to have your briefings delivered in cartoon form in order for you to watch it, in order for you to understand it. Adults don't have that kind of time, Donnie boy. So yeah, no one wants you here either. Now, let's get to the story. Is this ban, is this placement on restrictions for national security? Or is this racism and Islamophobia? And before you say the answer is what it obviously is, let's talk about it. It's no coincidence that the banned countries are predominantly brown and Black populations under the guise of overstays. What it is a revamping of his last term's travel bans. We saw it before. Even the partial restrictions to keep people from getting student visas. And now it just happens to be a time, again, where they're targeting pro-Palestine students, following Project Esther's recommendation to crack down on activism. This time, even other than Black people are getting caught in the fray of frivolous and outright racism by the regime that we happen to have in office. Because this time, He's even attempting to revoke student visas for Chinese students. Meanwhile, he brings in South Africans who are, of course, white, and these white Afrikaners arrived in the U.S. under a new refugee program and are being provided resettlement support. That's what's happening. And of course, that has absolutely nothing to do with his Sig Heil signatory, the socially awkward South African illegal immigrant who still has wet dreams about the good old days of apartheid, when the white people could just take everything from the brown people without all that pesky accountability or repercussions. Like it's supposed to be, YouTube. It couldn't be that. Couldn't have anything to do with that. There is no way on God's green earth that it could ever become more apparent to the rest of us that he and his administration is racist and is as desperate to align the United States as the third member in a world trifecta of dictatorships as an incel proud boy looking to have sex with something other than his hand without having to pay for it for once. That we can call it the new axis of evil, minus the cool uniforms and the ability to read books without pictures. But that's what it is. Would you like to know what these countries are? I'm glad you asked. Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Libya, Sudan, Yemen. He's got partial restrictions on Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Now, we'll skip the obvious, but we will say that it's no surprise to see Iran on that list now, considering the attacks from Israel on Iran just 2 Thursdays ago. And on a side note, real quick, in case you're asking yourself, what do these countries have to gain from attacking Iran, by the way? Like, besides the guise of stopping them from enriching uranium, which we know is bullshit. The reason why that is because it's what dictators do, YouTube. It's what they do. It's what they do when the country they dreamed would worship them ends up despising them for their incompetence instead. Yes, both Netanyahu and Trump are criminals. Criminals that face jail time the minute they leave office. And constant war means constant manufactured consent of their power. And no matter who has to die as a result, as their leader, that's a sacrifice they are willing to make. Anyway, back to the story. Afghanistan is also targeted with a full ban. Did you hear that one? Despite the fact that there are people standing alongside American service members for 20 years. 20 years. And of course, this is creating outrage from veterans who've stood by them and have been advocating for them ever since. It's exactly what you thought it was, people. You couldn't have indiscriminately picked any browner countries unless you removed all the grass and took a picture of the dirt. In a White House video, Trump cited the recent attack in Boulder, Colorado, as a justification for a renewed travel ban, but the suspect, Mohammed Sabri Salman, is from Egypt, not banned, and he entered the country on a tourist visa before he applied for asylum. Let me give you the name of this bill. I might just put it over here so you can read it while we're talking, get a screenshot of it for yourself while we describe it. But it's called Executive Order 14161 of January 20th, 2025. Protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. Now, what does this mean? Well, travelers from the fully banned countries who attempt to enter the United States after the ban takes effect will likely be denied boarding by airlines or turned away upon arrival in the U.S. Those from partially restricted countries may face additional scrutiny, delays, or denial of entry, depending on their visa type and purpose of travel. And with ICE being what it is, I don't know what any of that means. I know none of it's good. I'm sure you can understand the sentiment. International aid groups and refugee settlement organizations roundly condemned this ridiculous ban. The policy is not about national security, people. The question we asked in the beginning, it's about sowing division and vilifying communities that are seeking safety and opportunity. in these United States of America. That's it. That's all it's about. And that's not just me saying that. That's the quote from Abby Maxman, president of Oxfam America. YouTube, the quiet parts are being shouted out loud by this regime that we don't want browns and blacks. We want whites. Period. We want racists. Period. And for every one of you Latinos and Palestinians and blacks for Trump that sold the rest of us out because you had some ridiculous idea that your proximity to whiteness was any closer than mine was, or maybe that the Afghani who lost everything to help our soldiers was, here's your chance to not be a disgusting, filthy succubus on the rest of humanity that you let down and you destroyed to feed your selfish ego. You can start to redeem your humanity by going here and giving something back to the people who are going to need it. Yeah, we have a Spec Ops team that is doing everything they can to help people in need. And joining Patreon is a way to help fund what we do. So, another thing you could do to save your sleep at night after watching this, if you made it this far, is to press like and subscribe, share this content, and let other people know what's coming and what's already been written. You have a lot more work after that, but that's a start, huh? Anyway, actually, you know what? Why don't you just watch all the videos? Because there's a lot of education in there that you might need, that you obviously need. But I wasn't talking to you. I'm talking to everyone else. What we can do to help is going to be mutual aid, folks. Join that group. Yeah, we'd love it if it's us, even if it's not. Join that group. People are going to need help. They're everywhere. Find them. Find them. I'll try to put some in this comment section. And just to make sure you understand what's next, what will happen to the students on current visas, we don't know. But on the other hand, captured Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil just got released last week. So no, it's not the end. It's not over. I could give you a dozen of these stories where pressure has already. We just can't stop. We just cannot stop, people. Now, besides becoming a part of the Spec Ops team or becoming a writer if you so choose, maybe you want to do something like this yourself. At very least, you should be informed. And the way that I get informed, the way that I'm able to make these types of videos and know that I'm right, or at least what perspective I'm doing it from, is because I use ground news. Ground news has very quickly become one of my most prized resources, my go-to even, because I get to find out what stories are not covered by the blind spot feature, which I love. But not just the blind spot feature. Any of the stories that I bring up, I can see what either side is saying about it. I can also see who's paying for those headlines. It tells me who owns the publication, which also lets me know who they're writing it for. Many times, none of that is for us. But understanding the context helps us understand the story. Ground news is absolutely one of, if not the best way to know that you've gotten every side of a story and that there's not enough spin in the world that could have you misinterpret it. Check them out. It also helps the channel. You want us to grow? We want you to learn. Because since we've become the hub of resistance, we've always ended the show by saying, educate yourself, educate others, and then come back for more. I don't know. I guess it works. Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say Our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works. Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.
That was the Political Drain podcast, which can be heard on www.groovechillradio.com/political-drain and can be viewed on the Political Drain YouTube channel anytime. Once again, thank you for listening to Groove Chill as we resist fascism in any form, pursue democracy, peace, and love.